Welcome to Legend Makers, the podcast where education's true heroes take center stage.
Shine like a ray from the sun. There's something people look for but never can find.
Season 1, Episode 1 of the Legend Makers podcast. I can't think of a better guest than the guy kind of videoing in front of me right now, Chris Woods. I'm going to read your bio, Chris. I mean, I'm very familiar with you, but let me give you a little blurb here. Chris has been inspiring kids as a math and science teacher for over 25 years. In addition to his work in the classroom, Chris wrote the book Daily STEM, How to Create a STEM Culture in Your Classroom and Communities. He shares free STEM resources on his website, dailystem.com, and you can find him all over social at Daily STEM on social media, and he's the host of the STEM Everyday podcast. I was a guest on your cast about a year or so ago. I think it was fun, yeah. In addition to all this, Chris loves finding creative ways to inspire students, especially by adding STEM to every classroom and making STEM accessible to families at home. I think that's important.
Yeah.
He believes that STEM is not a class we teach, it's a culture we build. You're happily married to your wife, Sue, for 26 years. Congratulations. I'm going on 25. That's quite a feat. And you've got 3 great kids. Okay.
Yeah.
Let's get into it. Welcome, Chris.
Hey, Scott, I'm so excited to be here. I can't believe it's been, already, over a year since, we've connected, and it's great seeing all the great stuff you're doing with Drone Legends. I love your passion and excitement for education, and as you're helping kids learn about drones and educators to use drones in their classrooms, you're not just stuck on that. You're saying, how can I just help educators be better so that they can inspire even more kids? And I love that. Love your passion for helping out educators.
Absolutely. Thanks so much, man. Hey, listen. So we have a format here. I'm going to try this format.
Go for it.
So the first question, I'm always really interested in the why behind things. So I always want to ask teachers, and I make this a habit when I meet teachers, because, I don't come from an education background. I was in sales and marketing. And so I've only recently come to appreciate the people that put up with me as a youngster who wanted nothing to do with school whatsoever. Yeah. And I only have recently come to appreciate what it is that you folks do. And so I have this newfound respect, empathy, and admiration for the profession as a whole. Yeah. And so I start off by asking every teacher that I meet is like, why did you start teaching? And before you answer that, I have your book here. Yeah. It's an awesome book. If you haven't picked it up, teachers, grab this book, Daily STEM, How to Create a STEM Culture in Your Classrooms and Communities. It's awesome. I highlighted a passage here that I think gets to the heart of what you're. So here you say, I want to help others make STEM real and relevant to the kids in their classrooms, their schools, and their homes. Yeah. We need more than just STEM education. We need to create a culture of STEM learning. So I think that gets to part of your why, but tell me, why did you start teaching all those many years ago?
Yeah, it's a great story, Scott. Like a lot of people, kids, when you're in school and you don't know what you want to be someday. I mean, although I had ideas, I thought I wanted to be a doctor. I thought of course, like every, young kid, I wanted to be a professional athlete, but got past that. And but I didn't have great counselors at our school, saying, hey, if you're interested in this, consider these things. It was back before you could just hop online and search up, all sorts of careers and opportunities, which kids have that incredible resource available today. So for me, it was, I ended up at an engineering, sciencey kind of college, university through a pretty amazing story. But I started in chemical engineering because I knew I liked my chemistry class. I knew I liked sciencey stuff, and I knew that's what engineering was about. And that's what some of our kids are at. They don't quite know, and there's so many different avenues and paths that they can take to get to those things that connect with their interests and their passions in our classrooms. And part of the reason why I keep doing all the stuff I do now is because I know there's kids like me who were excited about science and technology, engineering and math, and want to get into it, but don't know, okay, what do I do? What are my next steps? How do I learn more about, the 47,000 different types of STEM jobs, let alone the thousands of different niches of engineering, if that's their jam. So I did a summer as a counselor at a camp and worked with kids, and it was like, yeah, I am not supposed to be an engineer sitting in a cubicle working in a factory. I'm supposed to help kids, and switched majors, became a math teacher, And the rest is history. 20 plus years later, thousands of kids have been in my classroom, and
Awesome.
I can't remember every single name that's gone through off the top of my head, but those faces are indelibly marked in my
Yeah,
mind and my heart. And hopefully I've made some sort of mark upon them. That's my why. Each
cool.
and every day, getting back up again and helping kids get excited, inspired about what they could be someday.
Hey, that's so cool. I think we share that passion and question. So you've been doing this for quite some time. Do you
Yes.
ever have students reach back out to you and like, was there something that sticks out, like one special person that's kind of like, wow, I did. I'm sure there's plenty, but what's like one that kind of sticks out?
Yeah. So I used to teach in a very rural, very remote place. So
Uh,
a lot of kids would stay right in the community afterwards. And I loved that aspect of teaching in small town, where you'd see kids in the store, you'd see kids pushing a stroller with kids of their own. I even taught long enough that a couple of parents showed up for parent teacher conferences and were like, Mr. Woods, I loved having you as a teacher. Now my own kid gets to have you as their teacher.
wow.
That makes you feel old, educators.
Yeah.
Um, but um,
Totally.
but that small town atmosphere is incredible for seeing those kids around, and and inevitably every single one would always say, "Man, Mr. Woods, I wish I would have paid attention to your class more. Boy, you put up with a lot of stuff from us, and but yet you kept on pushing me, and that's always exciting. But yet here now I teach in a right in a city, a big city, and
And
a
where are
kid.
you? I'm sorry. Where are you
Oh,
based?
so I'm in Grand Rapids, Michigan,
Yeah.
and
Okay.
so one of the great big cities in Michigan. And just a couple weeks ago, I connected with a kid who was my student. Probably like in my first 5 years of teaching in that remote place, and now he works in Grand Rapids, doing marketing stuff, doing design work for a great big, kind of furniture and all sorts of different types of technologies and engineering kind of company. and
Huh.
and we sat down and just chatted what kind of how far we'd both come, and it was just neat to see. I mean, those impacts that we make with our kids, whether we're a kindergarten teacher or whether we're a 12th grade teacher, the impacts you make on those kids, they last a lifetime, educators. And we may not see it, but it's there.
Yeah, for sure.
It's so different than, Scott, than being like in a factory job or something where you see the results every day. If you're working construction, if you're working in a hospital, you see that person get well, you see that house get built. If you're a teacher, you don't see that kid often get that job, become successful in their career, in their life, and their family. But
Right.
it happens.
Right. For
And
sure.
sometimes any reminders we get, man, they help a lot, and they are there.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot there. A couple of things as you were talking, I was thinking. So one, it feels like from the outside looking in, and I follow you on all your socials. I engage with you. It seems like
Mhm.
you. I've had several teachers in my life that I can remember and reflect on and go, yeah, they made learning fun and interesting. Like
Yeah.
it feels like you're that guy. You're that teacher that where Mr. Wood's class is like the cool class, not because you let everybody just kind of run roughshod, but because
Right.
you make learning relevant, interesting, exciting, fun. So that's kind of part one. And and then do you talk about the long term, like planting the seeds, right? Like you're
Mhm.
germinating these little seeds at whatever age, and you may
Yeah.
not always see those long term results, right? You may not see the oak turn
Right.
into the oak. You're dealing with saplings, right?
Yeah.
But do you see? I'm sure you see like breakthroughs that inspire you. That even at that young level, I know I've seen it in just the last few years, where you'll see a spark
Yeah.
go off on a kid, and you're like, oh yeah, I there's the immediacy right there. So there's kind of two things. It's you look like you're learning a heck of a lot of fun, and two, I bet you those short term wins. And it kind of gets to my next question for you is like, I think about like people just starting off. I mean, you've been doing this
Mhm.
for a long time and the world has changed significantly.
Yeah.
I'm in my 50s, so I know things were very different than they were when I was in school.
Right.
What advice would you give to somebody that's kind of just starting out, getting into this profession or thinking about getting into this profession? Because it is a noble profession,
Yeah.
but it's not the sexiest profession in the world. So it's again, I go back to the admiration I have for people that choose to do this. What advice would you give?
Yeah, Scott, you said a lot there to unpack, and
Yeah.
I'll tie back into some of those things that you were mentioning a moment ago. Yeah, it's not necessarily that high view kind of career that people often look for. I could definitely make more money, using my math degree, doing something else, working with numbers, data for a big company. I'm not getting big endorsements from, pencil companies and calculator companies to do what I'm doing every day. But the results, are tangible when you see that spark go on in that
Yeah.
kid that's struggling. And by the time, teaching in a high school, I may teach a kid in ninth grade or interact with a kid even not in my classroom in ninth grade.
Right.
And then by the time they're a senior, to see all the growth, the progression, and that kid is ready to go out and make a difference in the world. And they feel ready and confident to go out into the world and use the
Right.
skills they've learned in my class and other classes. It's not a sprint. It's definitely a marathon. I mean, if you're a parent, you understand that. And many educators are parents themselves, bringing that atmosphere into your classroom, realizing, this may be a struggle for this kid on that particular day. They may have their
Hmm.
head down because, one of 1,000 different reasons. I'm
Hmm.
going to do my best to help and encourage that kid and find what I can do to help that kid that day. And it might be completely different than the kid on the other side of the room who's, finished everything, is almost checking out because they're so, they figured it out so quickly. And so, I'm going to like grab the Rubik's cubes off my desk and just set them on their desk while they're sitting there and, not say anything, but that kid's going to pick that up and
Uh-huh.
that's going to spark them as well. Um,
Oh.
but you also talked about, teachers being memorable and that fun teacher, and you clarified it great by saying it's not just that you're having fun. It's those teachers that combine that real world, that relevant, that stuff that's out there in that real world,
Hmm.
bringing it into the classroom and showing kids, hey, there is a purpose to this stuff,
Yeah.
and showing those kids that it can be fun to learn, it can be exciting to learn. I can never compete with, being up in front. Every one of them could pull out, video out of their pocket on their phone and scroll through and find something way more interesting than me. I have to show
I
them
don't
that
know about that.
what what I'm offering, though, that knowledge, that those skills are going to lead to success. And
Hmm.
and you know what? That's the fun part for them when
Yeah.
they get to someday have a successful job, a job they enjoy, in a future career that they're really passionate about. That's what more than anything is going to make it fun for them.
Yeah, for sure. I just go back to the teacher that I'm thinking about, and you said it. It wasn't just having the fun. It was because he expected a lot out of us. In fact, he
Yeah,
was a little tough.
yeah.
But
I,
we
I had a
we
student, I had a student a couple, weeks ago say, Mr. Woods, man, you are I hate you as a teacher because you make us do so much, but it wasn't said out of, animosity. It was
yeah.
said out of respect. And it was said out of, I get it. I value what you're teaching us because you value that learning, those possibilities.
It's funny you say that because I think in school, at least the way my school was coming up, we had coaches and we had teachers. When
Yeah.
in fact, and the coaches were always the guy. I mean, I can only speak for guy sports, and I played a lot of
Mhm.
contact sports, football, wrestle, lacrosse, and they were
Yeah.
hard, they were tough, but we respected the hell out of them, right?
Yeah.
Like we would run laps for them, we would do push-ups for them, and I
Yep.
think teachers, it almost needs to be reframed as like life coaching, right? Like you guys are coaching students in a different way, but you're preparing them for successful endeavors in the real world, whether that be interpersonal. I mean, a lot of this stuff. Think about how much time they spend with you versus their parents.
Yeah. Yeah. And what a not only incredible opportunity, but a huge responsibility that is for us as educators to think about. We are spending that so much time with those kids, and side note, they're also spending a ton of time also out there on the internet and social media as well. And the influences that they're getting from that, the influences they're getting from us as educators, and oftentimes only a small amount that they're getting from their parents, which
Yeah.
is so important,
Hmm.
that we as educators always make sure that we point back and say, hey, talk with your parents, tell your parents about what you learned today in class,
Yeah.
and parents, I mean, myself as a parent, talking to my own kids at home, hey, not just how was school, because you'll get fine as the
Yeah.
answer, or but
Or-
hey, what was the most exciting thing you learned today?
yeah.
What was, and then actually I would always ask my kids questions, and then so they'd start asking me questions. Hey, Dad, did you send anybody to the principal's office? Did you all the fun questions they would ask, just because they wanted to hear about my day too. So but
Yeah.
that, yeah, that's what it's all about.
Cool. So I'm starting out. So I'm coming out of school, or I'm in college, and I'm
Yeah.
taking. I got my eyes on being a teacher.
Yeah.
What do you say to me?
Number one, just when you get to that first classroom, know that you're going to keep learning. You're going to keep getting better every day. The person you are as an educator in your first year is not the same as in your 5, 10, 15, 20. And me as a 25-year educator, I'm still learning new stuff. I'm
Yeah.
still honing my craft, trying to get better every day. So never stop learning. I would highly encourage, keep reading books.
Yeah.
But talk to your students, see what you can do better. I will always, on the end of every one of my semester exams, final exams, hey, what did you think about this class? What could be
Mm.
better? What did you like best about this class? What was worst about this class? Always looking for that feedback at a time when it's, especially right after they take an exam, they're going to be really honest with you. But yeah, just keep learning, and then talk to other teachers.
Mhm.
Go ask, hey, can I come watch in your classroom? Can I
Okay.
watch you teach a class? Just don't be afraid to ask questions. Don't be afraid to ask for help.
Yeah.
It really, you can learn a lot from the people that have been those teachers. And I'll say this, Scott, a lot of educators, once they get to year 15, 20, 25, they're already saying, hey, I want to get that raise. I'm going to go into administration. I'm going to become a
Hmm.
principal. And
Hmm.
if you're a principal, make sure that you're still building into those teachers, those new teachers. But also some of those people who become principals, if you can, stay in a classroom. I highly encourage it. We need good teachers to stay in the
Yeah.
classrooms. It's tough. I'd love to have that raise to become a principal. But I see that value of being in that classroom still, to keep helping those newer teachers as well.
It sounds like getting back to like why, right? Like, why do you do it in the first place, right?
Yeah.
It's if it's not money driven, then there's
Yeah.
a bigger purpose behind what you're doing. And I think if you can, and I think about that often because I think about what teachers must go through day in, day out with changing environments. You're dealing with technology and social media. Certainly that brings a lot of new challenges into the mix. Parents are different today than they were. I
Mhm.
remember in my day, I got sent to a boarding school in Maine where they didn't even know what was going on. It was pre-cell phone, pre-internet, and it wasn't just your general run-of-the-mill boarding school. It was a kind of correct my little bad attitude boarding school, and
Yeah.
they did things to us, and I think it wasn't a horrible thing. I think looking back on it, it was what shaped my character, but
Yeah.
that wouldn't fly today. And I think parents are a little softer on their kids today, and you're dealing with some of that where the expectation of accountability at home maybe isn't there, so they bring that into the classroom, and maybe you have to feel some of the implications of that. So I think again, I go back to then the why behind what you do has to kind of pull you. I think it's true to me in entrepreneurship. It's
Yeah.
not always a straight line, right? You
No.
talked about always learning and always finding resources to better yourself because I've got a why in the distance. And if that
Yeah.
why can pull me, all the roadblocks and hurdles and inevitable challenges that I face along the way are surmountable because I have that thing off in the distance. So I think that's really cool and key. And I think you embody that because I think for new teachers, go follow Chris. I mean, find him on at Daily STEM and watch his videos. Follow along. I think your enthusiasm's infectious for your craft. And also you've got some great tips and read the books, right? So I think that's
Yeah.
great advice.
Yeah.
Okay. Here's an interesting one. So
Yeah.
it's easy to slide into. We live in this world of social media, and it always we're sensational, and news bites and headlines. They're always negative, right? Everything's
Mhm.
this, and the sky's falling, and
Yeah.
politics are divisive, and all this stuff. So we live in this. But I want to know what excites you about education today. I'm just reading my notes. I am looking
Yeah.
down. Look,
Yeah.
here's the thing. I'm an optimist. I always feel like I can find something really great in everything. And so, what are you most excited about? What are you most optimistic about in education today versus where you were 20 something years ago?
Yeah, Scott, I'm most excited about just the amount of resources, the amount of things that are available. More and more. I mean, like I can see right in your background there, you got a 3D printer all lit up,
Yeah, yeah,
and the ability to have a 3D printer in your
right,
classroom
right.
is really only a few $100 investment. And it doesn't matter if you're a math or a science teacher or a history or a literacy teacher. There are ways to get kids to connect their learning with those hands-on skills, those high-tech skills, and to cross those curricular bounds like never before because of the resources that are available. And there's grants available. There's just all sorts of ways to provide opportunities for every kid. I mean, it doesn't matter. I mean, I taught in a rural location. We were providing great things for kids. I'm teaching right in a downtown city, and we're providing things for kids. It doesn't matter
Yeah.
where you are. That every kid, every classroom, every day can be excited about their learning, can have access to things. And I'll tell you what, SpaceX will do a launch. And I'll play that up on the screen, and we can watch a SpaceX launch live. Those cameras on the outside as that thing is flying up through the air,
Yeah.
watching the booster come back and land on a drone ship, and to be able to do all that sitting in a classroom,
Yeah.
hundreds of miles away, thousands of miles away, is just incredible.
Yeah.
It's not a wheeled in TV, black and white or whatever. And all you see is it going up in the air, and then it's just kind of like a little, dot in the sky.
You're
I mean,
seeing.
for kids to be able to see that and realize, oh, it's not just the astronauts. It's, thousands of people doing all those jobs to support the astronauts, or all those thousands of jobs to create and build these types of things. The ability to inspire kids today is incredible. If we as educators take advantage of it. The whole "when are we ever going to use this anyway" line, you don't have to hear that at all as an educator. It should completely go away if we as educators are bringing just those little pieces of things into our classroom. Um, that's to me what's amazing about education right now, and even more so as we keep going in the future.
It's literally all around you.
Yeah.
It's in every, and you do this so well. So I watched today. I saw your leaf, right? I mean, you
Yeah.
just find the most innocuous things. It's so funny. So I saw this. You posted this thing on Twitter today. I can't get used to calling it X. So you posted
Yep.
this thing on Twitter, and it was a leaf, and the water droplets from the rain had landed on the leaf and had created a magnifying effect
Yeah.
into the leaf's pattern. And I thought, just you pointing that out, like literally this stuff is in everything that we do, whether it's the human created Mars missions or it's a leaf laying on the ground with a drop of water on it.
Yep.
You seem to be able to identify the educational opportunity in those events
Yeah.
that are really cool. I think as you were talking about Mars, I about Musk and Mars, I thought about Ingenuity launch. I'm in the drone space, and we
Right.
watched the Ingenuity and the Perseverance rover go up. I
Incredible.
got to tell you, as a kid that grew up like watching Star Wars, I'm showing my age again, but like, I was there at the premiere, 10 years old, like waiting patiently to go see it. Not
Yeah.
patiently, actually, very impatiently. But those special effects, what we watched, I don't know if you remember, but they had like a dual camera on the Perseverance rover as it was entering the Martian atmosphere. And
Yeah.
at one point they had a reverse camera which was showing up with the chute, and you saw the Martian sky as it entered the atmosphere, and it was a blue sky, and I think it was blue. I mean, I remember looking at this going, what are you, look what you're seeing here. I think at the time Mars and that trajectory had been about 300 million miles away. Correct me if I'm wrong, but it seemed to be that it took 6 months to get there. I think it
Right.
launched
Yeah.
in like July and got there in February or something
Yep.
along that timeline. And to see the clarity of that video of
Yeah.
this, you're seeing like the Martian sky and the landscape. You're like, that is another world.
Yeah.
And then to your point, when they flashed to the ground crew, all 4,000 of them jumping up and down, loving
Yeah.
life. It took a team and that's what's really cool is you don't have to necessarily be the person that builds the rocket, but you can be on that team that's getting that rocket to launch, whether you're an engineer, a data scientist, a designer. So I think there's stuff all around you that's super relevant. All right, look, I told you I'd keep you for a half an hour. Do you have any parting words for anybody? One, and then two, just let everybody know where they can reach you again. And if you got anything you want to plug a little bit.
Hey, I will say this, Scott. It's been such an honor to be on the podcast on your
Thanks,
first
man.
podcast. You've done a great job. I think even just thinking about this, I mean, here's your first podcast, doing this. And I can bet if 50 podcasts from now, you're going to be that much better. You're going to be, you're going to know exactly, everything. You'll kind of have a whole system, a whole routine, and everything. That's just like educators. It's the same exact thing for every one of us as educators. The more we do it, the more we do anything. You were talking about, seeing the water droplets on a leaf. The more that I look for things and start to notice things, the more I notice them even more. It's just something we learn to do. And yeah, I mean, you stood in line for Star Wars. I would make sure that I watched MacGyver every week. And played with those Legos over and over again, with my brother. And, it's those same things. The more we do something, the better we get at it. That's really what education is really all about, because we want our kids to do the same thing. The more they do something, the better they become at it. They build those skills that turn into opportunities someday for their future. You also mentioned just about teachers that are memorable, and I'll refer to it, the book that Drone Legends has partnered with to create, Rise of the Legends. Phenomenal book, but at the heart of it is a phenomenal teacher, that inspires those kids with that drone class. And you mentioned earlier, what's something that new educators can do to get kids excited to really get excited about being an educator. And be in a club, help with a club. Start your own club. There are incredible opportunities when we do those things, because those things cross those curricular bounds. Those things help kids get excited and engaged and passionate about their learning beyond just the classroom. And that's why I love that book so much.
Thanks.
But at the same time too, that's what us as educators should all be aspiring to do. Our time is all limited. We've got this much time to teach this much stuff. It's never going to happen. So we just got to teach as much as we can, get those kids excited to keep learning once they're out of our classroom, out of school, and off into the world, making their own place in the world, and hopefully becoming the next great generation of explorers, thinkers, makers, inventors, and educators.
Wow. There you go. You heard it here first. I love it, Chris. Thank you. I could talk to you forever. Listen, you can find Chris on his STEM podcast, the Everyday STEM or STEM Everyday podcast, at Daily STEM. Are your social handles? What, you're on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook? Where are you?
Got all those. Yep.
All of them. All of the above.
Spend most of my time on the Twitter though. Yeah.
You do. You're on Twitter a lot. And then you've got your website, dailystem.com.
Yep. Tons of resources on there. Free stuff. I'm there. It's all there. Great ideas. Great. Just anything to help more educators out. That's what it's all about. So.
All right, my friend. Well, listen, thank you very much. I know you got a class to go teach, and they're waiting for you patiently. So thank you so much, Chris. I appreciate your time today. And I think teachers will get a huge value out of listening to this episode. Thank you. What a way to kick this off.
Appreciate it, Scott. Good luck on the podcast. Keep educators. Don't forget to subscribe to this podcast and leave a review, because it's exciting.
Oh, man. Thanks so much, Chris. We'll talk to you soon. All right.
Thanks.
All right, man. Thank you.